everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into restaurant pest control today.
Something tells me this is a topic you might be looking into right now.
You got it. And we know you're busy, so no time to waste.
Let's cut right to the chase.
Exactly. We'll get you up to speed on all the need-to-know info about restaurant pest control.
It's absolutely essential for any restaurant owner or manager.
And to help illustrate some of these key points,
We'll be taking a look at a company called Freedom Wildlife Solutions and Pest Control.
they're based in Clayton, North Carolina.
So we'll get to see a real-world example of what kind of services.
Expertise and considerations come into play when you're choosing a pest control provider
It's a great way to see how local companies can tailor their services.
to meet the unique needs of a specific area.
So yeah, let's jump right in.
Okay, so first things first.
The big WHY.
Why is pest control such a big deal for restaurants?
I mean, we all know pests are kind of gross.
But it's more than just an ick factor, right?
Oh, definitely way more.
What are the real consequences here?
Well, imagine this.
You're a customer at a restaurant,
And you see a cockroach.
just scurrying across the floor.
That's not just a bad experience for you.
It's a PR nightmare for the restaurant.
That kind of thing.
Spreads like wildfire these days.
Online reviews, word of mouth.
Seriously damaging to your reputation.
Yeah. And then on top of that,
You got the legal side of things to worry about.
absolutely, health code violations are a major concern.
We're talking fines.
Potentially even temporary closures,
Wow, that could really hurt a business.
both financially and in terms of customer trust.
And of course,
There's the most serious consequence of all,
food contamination.
a direct threat to public health.
And that's a huge responsibility for any restaurant owner.
No doubt about it.
So it's not just about keeping things looking nice and tidy,
It's about protecting your business.
and your customers.
And speaking of things that can cause damage,
The website mentioned property damage too, right?
oh yeah, rodents in particular can be a real problem,
They love to chew through things.
like electrical wiring.
Insulation.
Can lead to some pretty costly repairs.
Not to mention safety hazards.
And then there's the nesting issue,
Oh, yeah.
getting into your walls.
Storage areas.
It's a real headache to deal with.
So we're seeing a pretty clear picture here.
Pest control is not something to take lightly.
Not at all. It's about protecting your business
Your reputation.
and the health of your customers.
It's about so much more than just a few bugs.
Now, this website,
They had some pretty strong language about
the most dreaded pests, as they called them,
flies, roaches, and rodents.
a trifecta of terror.
Exactly, the biggest threats to restaurants.
Okay, so those are our usual suspects,
Let's break down why each one is so problematic.
especially in a restaurant setting.
Right. So
Mhm.
starting with flies,
They seem annoying,
but pretty harmless on the surface.
just buzzing around,
But they're actually incredibly efficient at,
spreading bacteria.
think about it.
They land on garbage,
Then they land on food prep surfaces.
maybe even the food itself.
And every time they do,
They could be depositing all sorts of nasty pathogens.
not a good thought.
Definitely not. All right, what about roaches?
What makes them so tough to get rid of?
I feel like I've seen those things survive anything.
That's the problem. Their resilience,
They can survive almost anywhere,
and they love to hide in those dark, tight spaces.
like under equipment.
Behind walls, all those hard-to-reach spots.
Yeah, where traditional sprays often miss.
Exactly. Getting rid of roaches.
It requires a really targeted approach.
You've got to be strategic about it.
And rodents. Well,
I think most people understand why those are bad news.
yeah, it's not just about them being creepy.
It's about the health risks.
Their droppings can contaminate food,
They can gnaw through packaging,
and they can carry diseases.
like salmonellosis.
And because they're so good at hiding,
You might not even realize you have a problem.
until it's a full-blown infestation.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
So we've talked about the bad news.
What happens if you don't take pest control seriously?
Let's shift gears now and talk about solutions.
All right, sounds good.
Freedom Wildlife Solutions.
They list a bunch of different services on their website.
What kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, they cover the big three we just discussed.
Flies, roaches, and rodents.
They've got fly control, roach extermination, and rodent control.
And they also mention an initial inspection,
Targeted treatments.
ongoing monitoring, and maintenance.
Seems like they take a pretty comprehensive approach.
Yeah, it's more than just setting traps or spraying
And that's really important.
Yeah.
Effective pest control isn't just about reacting.
to an existing problem.
It's about proactively preventing one.
I like that proactive approach.
And that initial inspection is crucial
Why is that?
because it allows the pest control pros to identify,
Potential vulnerabilities.
like entry points, harborage areas,
and conditions that might attract pests in the first place. So it's like a detective coming in.
to figure out How those tiny criminals are getting in?
before they even have a chance to commit the crime.
I love that analogy.
And then the targeted treatments.
Those are all about addressing those vulnerabilities
Using the most effective methods.
for each specific pest and situation.
So it's not one size fits all.
Not at all. Different pests require different strategies.
What works for roaches might not work for rodents,
Exactly.
and vice versa.
Right.
So what about the ongoing monitoring and maintenance?
What's involved in that?
Well, that's about staying vigilant.
And staying ahead of any potential problems.
So like setting traps,
Conducting regular inspections
making adjustments to the treatment plan,
as needed
like having a security system in place.
to catch any intruders before they can cause real damage.
Okay, so let's say you decided,
To hire a pest control provider
what are some key things to look for?
when making that decision.
Freedom Wildlife Solutions highlighted a few things about themselves.
That might be helpful here,
They mentioned being veteran and family-owned.
which some customers might find appealing.
Well, from a practical standpoint.
What's really important is their emphasis on expertise.
And certifications.
You want someone who knows what they're doing.
Right, not just someone with a can of bug spray.
Exactly. Look for companies that have experience
Dealing with the specific pests you're concerned about.
and that employ technicians who are properly trained.
And certified.
Makes sense.
They also highlighted their local knowledge.
Which can be a real asset.
Is that always necessary, though?
Couldn't a large national company handle any pest issue?
That's a good question.
While big companies definitely have their strengths,
A local company like Freedom Wildlife Solutions
will have a deeper understanding.
with the specific pest pressures in your area.
They'll know which species are most common.
What times of year they're most active.
Even how local weather patterns can affect pest behavior.
So it's about more than just having the right tools and techniques.
It's about understanding the local ecosystem,
They also mentioned being licensed and insured.
which is super important.
Why is that?
Licensing ensures they're operating legally,
And meeting industry standards
while insurance protects you.
in case of any accidents or damages during treatment.
Good point.
So to recap,
We're looking for experience, proper licensing.
local knowledge and a commitment to ongoing service.
Those are all important factors to consider.
When choosing a provider
Absolutely. Those are key indicators of a reputable.
and reliable pest control company.
And speaking of local,
I noticed Freedom Wildlife Solutions is very specific about their service area.
they list quite a few counties.
Around Clayton, North Carolina.
Yeah, let's take a closer look at that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
So they're really focusing on a particular region, huh?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Why might that be important?
For someone choosing a pest control provider,
Oh, yeah.
well, different areas have different climates.
Different landscapes.
And as a result,
different pest populations.
exactly. So a company that specializes in a certain region
They're going to be more familiar with the specific challenges.
that restaurants in those areas face,
They'll know which pests are most prevalent.
where they like to hide.
And what the best strategies are for controlling them.
It's kind of like
You wouldn't hire a polar bear expert.
to deal with a desert scorpion problem.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's especially relevant when you consider
The list of counties they serve,
we're talking about Johnston County,
Wake County,
Hernet County,
these are areas with a mix of,
urban and rural environments,
which means,
a greater diversity of potential pests.
so knowing the local ecosystem.
Is a big part of effective pest control.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way before.
It's crucial.
And it goes beyond just identifying the pests, right?
Right. A local company will also be up to date on local regulations
Ordinance,
related to pest control.
which can vary from county to county
Exactly. Don't want to be caught off guard.
by some obscure rule that you weren't aware of.
No, definitely not.
So when you're looking for a provider,
It's worth considering whether they have that hyper-local expertise.
that can really make a difference.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about professional services.
But I'm curious, beyond calling in the experts,
What are some everyday practices that restaurant staff can implement?
to prevent pest problems in the first place,
And it's a great question.
while professional pest control is essential,
It's equally important to have those daily habits and procedures in place.
that make your restaurant less appealing to pests.
So it's all about creating a culture of
Cleanliness.
and awareness.
Exactly.
So what would that look like in practice?
Where rigorous cleaning protocols are absolutely paramount,
Okay, so making sure all surfaces
especially in food prep and storage areas.
are cleaned and sanitized regularly.
Think about those hard-to-reach spots
Behind appliances.
under sinks.
Those are prime hiding places for pests.
Oh yeah, they love those spots.
And I'd imagine food storage is a big one too.
Absolutely. Proper food storage is crucial for deterring pests.
So how do we do that?
All food should be stored in airtight containers,
Not just to keep it fresh.
but also to prevent pests from accessing it.
So even something as simple as a loose lid
On a container of flour.
could be an invitation for pests.
Exactly. It's all about eliminating.
Those easy opportunities for them to find food and shelter.
And it's not just about dried goods either.
What else should we be thinking about?
Make sure refrigerators and freezers are well sealed.
And regularly cleaned.
Don't forget about rotating stock properly.
Okay, so older items
Should be moved to the front and used first.
to prevent anything from expiring.
And attracting pests.
Makes sense. What about waste management?
Some might think that's just about cleanliness.
And not necessarily related to pest control.
That's a common misconception.
So how is it related?
Waste management is actually a critical component of pest control.
Okay, I'm listening.
Having a designated area for garbage
And keeping those bins tightly sealed.
is essential. And make sure the area around the bin.
Just kept clean and free of spills or food debris.
Right. You don't want to create a buffet for pests.
So it's all about making your restaurant as unattractive.
To those little critters as possible.
Like pest-proofing your establishment.
Exactly.
And it's not just about the back of the house either, right?
Right, front of house staff can play a role too.
How so?
Being attentive to spills.
Cleaning up crumbs promptly
Even making sure doors are closed properly.
can make a difference.
All those little things add up.
It sounds like it's really a team effort
It is. Everyone has a part to play.
in keeping those pests at bay.
Absolutely. And it's not just about prevention either.
No.
It's also about early detection.
Okay.
Staff should be trained to recognize the signs of pest activity
And report them immediately.
right away.
So we're talking about things like droppings,
Chewed packaging.
any unusual smells.
Exactly. Those are all red flags.
That something might be amiss.
And the sooner you catch a problem,
the easier it will be to address.
it's like a small crack in a dam.
If you ignore it,
It can quickly turn into a major breach.
that's a good analogy.
And speaking of cracks,
Literal.
another important preventative measure is sealing up any gaps or holes.
In the building's exterior.
Right. Those can be like welcome signs for pests.
Yeah, they're just looking for a way in.
Exactly. Think about gaps around pipes.
Vents.
Doors
Those seemingly small openings.
can be entry points for all sorts of critters.
So it's important to seal them up
I'm realizing there's a lot more to pest control.
than I initially thought.
It's a whole science.
It really is. And thankfully,
There are resources available.
to help restaurant owners and managers.
Implement effective strategies.
Like what kind of resources?
Well, for starters.
There are industry guidelines to follow.
Okay.
The FDA has specific guidelines
For food service establishments.
when it comes to pest control.
So there's a framework in place.
And there are professional organizations,
Like
the National Pest Management Association,
they provide training and resources.
for those in the industry.
So you don't have to figure this all out on your own.
Nope, there's support out there. That's good to know and remember.
A good pest control company will be a partner in this process.
They'll be there to help you,
They can provide guidance on best practices
help you develop a customized plan
and provide ongoing support.
to ensure your restaurant stays pest-free. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about professional services
The role of everyday practices.
and the resources available to help.
What's the key takeaway?
You want our listener to walk away with
I think the main point is that pest control,
is an ongoing process.
not a one-time event,
It requires vigilance, a proactive approach.
and a commitment from everyone on the team.
But the rewards are worth the effort.
Definitely.
So it's not about just reacting when you see a bug.
It's about creating a culture of prevention and awareness.
And remember, it's not just about protecting your bottom line
It's about protecting the health and safety of your customers.
and your staff.
Well said.
It sounds like pest control is about a lot more than just bugs.
It really is. It's about responsibility.
Peace of mind
Maintaining a high standard of quality and care.
in your restaurant. I love that. Okay, before we wrap up,
Any final thoughts?
for our listener who's on this pest control journey,
We focus a lot on the how of pest control,
the nuts and bolts.
but I think it's equally important to reflect on the why.
Okay, the why.
Why are we so concerned about pests in restaurants?
Yeah, it's not just about aesthetics or inconvenience.
There's something deeper going on there.
It's about
Safety, trust, and responsibility.
ensuring that the food we serve is safe.
And that our customers have a positive experience.
It's about upholding a certain standard of care, and ethics.
When it comes to food service.
I see what you mean.
And I think that's something worth remembering.
As you navigate the complexities of pest control,
It's not just about ticking boxes and meeting regulations.
it's about something much more meaningful.
Absolutely.
It's like pest control is a reflection of your values.
As a restaurant owner.
You could say that.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've learned a lot about the importance of pest control for restaurants.
It's really an essential part of running a successful food service business.
Absolutely. And as always, we encourage you to check out the source material yourself.
We'll link to that Freedom Wildlife Solutions and Pest Control website in the show notes.
They've got tons of great information on their services.
And the specific challenges restaurants face in their service area.
Their website's a really good example of
How a local company can be such a valuable resource.
yeah, they're not just selling a service.
They're sharing their knowledge and expertise.
To help restaurants make informed decisions.
It's like they're saying,
We're in this together.
exactly.
That collaborative approach is so important in pest control.
It's not just about the pest control company doing their thing.
It's about the restaurant staff being actively involved.
Right, it's a partnership.
Built on trust, communication, and a shared understanding of the goals.
Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting how this conversation has evolved. We started by talking about the practicalities of pest control.
The types of pests, the services, the
But
methods.
we've really delved into something much deeper.
We've touched on the psychological impact of pests
The financial and legal ramifications
and even the ethical considerations.
of ensuring a safe and healthy dining experience.
It's like pest control is a microcosm of the restaurant industry itself.
There are so many layers, so many interconnected factors that contribute to success.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not just about the food, the service, or the ambiance.
It's about creating an environment that's safe, welcoming, and trustworthy.
And pest control plays a vital role in achieving that goal.
For sure.
So for our listener out there who's tackling this challenge,
Of restaurant pest control.
what's the one piece of advice you'd leave them with?
That's a good question.
What's the most important thing for them to remember?
I'd say don't underestimate the importance of prevention
It's always easier to prevent a problem.
than to deal with it after it's already happened.
So invest in those preventative measures.
Like what kind of things?
Well, the cleaning protocols, the staff training, the regular inspections.
All those things we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
There are experts out there who can guide you.
And provide the support you need to keep your restaurant pest-free.
It's like anything else in business.
Knowledge is power.
The more you understand about pest control
The better equipped you'll be to make smart decisions.
and protect your investment.
Well said. I think we've thoroughly explored this topic today.
I think so too.
Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Just this pest control might not be the most glamorous part of running a restaurant. It's one of the most essential.
By taking it seriously and making it a priority.
You're demonstrating your commitment to excellence, to your customers, and to the success of your business.
Beautifully said. It's a reminder that even the smallest details can have a big impact.
They really can.
All right, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of restaurant pest control.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you found it insightful, informative, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
We hope so too.
And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring this topic.
Yeah.
Check out the source material, ask questions, and never stop learning.
Because knowledge is the best defense against any pest.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.